All right. Good morning, entrepreneurs and supporters of entrepreneurs. We will begin our program in about 5 minutes. So we urge you to get comfortable and we will get started shortly with our day. Okay, so good morning and welcome to San Marcos, Texas, heart of the innovation corridor and home to a burgeoning number of entrepreneurs. It's no wonder it's no wonder that we're bringing you the collective wisdom of speakers and panels for the next 2 days covering the total health for entrepreneurs. Today, we'll explore our theme Get Mentally Fit and Mental Wellness. Tomorrow, our final day, we'll cover the theme Get Business Fit, along with resources to ensure your business is on course to meet its full potential. My name is Jonathan Banbury, pastor of Commission Ministries, and I will be your host over the next 2 days. I'm also a member of the board and secretary for the Dunbar Heritage Association. I want to be sure you all know about the scavenger hunt we are conducting that will lead to prizes at the end of the week. So make sure you check the chat to view today's scavenger hunt. I want to bring to the stage very soon Ed Rios. We know that mental, physical, and spiritual wellness are interminably intertwined. So it is important to note that we have positioned mental wellness today. We will hear from local father and founder of Will Thrive Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to the memory of Ed's son, William, who took his own life last summer. Ed will speak of the heartbreak a parent experiences and he and his wife's frustration at not being able to locate the right kind of services for their son in time. We will also be bringing later spoken word artist and poet Yashi Brown by way of video.
Welcome to Get Mentally Fit. My name is Eduardo Rios, and I am pleased to be a part of Global Entrepreneurship Week 2020 from San Marcos, Texas, located here in the USA. So let's get started. This presentation is brought to you by the Will Thrive Foundation, which I am co-founder and CEO. Our foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 located here in San Marcos, Texas. My wife and I started this foundation after our son took his own life. We made it our mission to help teens ages 7 to 17 who are suffering from anxiety disorders. Our goals are to support parents, caregivers, and educators on teen anxiety and depression. We will do this by advocating for and helping provide access to compassionate mental health care services through collaborations with service providers and schools. Finally, we want to destigmatize mental health in our community and beyond. So, the question is, how can we, as entrepreneurs, get mentally fit? Let's lay a foundation for our discussion today. First, these are trying times for all businesses, but especially hit hard during this pandemic are the small to medium-sized businesses. The impact for some of us is still to be determined. Technology. We have all had to step up our technology game to some degree as a necessity to survive. Some of us are doing better than others, and some of us must bite our tongue if we are also having to help our children be remote learners. Indeed, technology is probably playing a bigger role in our lives than we ever anticipated, and it's not going away. This forced evolution of how we work will be around after the pandemic gets manageable. The economy is poised to change with political transitions and global impacts. We have been reminded that our economy is connected globally. Even though we are just focusing on selling our widget, we will have to consider our customers' ability or appetite to buy it. We may be susceptible to these outside influences and must figure out how we weather the storm or continue weathering the storm. Can we really balance work and life? If we were not good before, how do we master it now? If you are a remote worker, your worlds may have collided in a bigger way than expected. Finally, how do we measure success for our business today? What has changed, and how do we react to those changes? How you address these foundational perspectives is individual to your business and your approach. Any one of these can bring about stress and anxiety. For the entrepreneur, what can you still control today? We will talk about mental fitness for entrepreneurs in 3 dimensions. First, we will talk about the environment where we work. Next, we will discuss physical activities we can engage in to help us mentally. Last, we will examine our mindset and how we think. You see my daughter here when she was 3 years old. I would tell her, "Put on your game face, Rosie." By the way, she is 15 now, and as any teenager would, appreciates it when I use her in one of my presentations. If you are a remote worker and work from home, do your best to separate your office space. I know this may not be possible. This is important because it helps you set boundaries, and these boundaries are critical to establishing or enforcing your work-life balance. If you must go into work, try to change something about your office space. Rearranging your office, your cubicle, even changing out the pictures of your kids when they were 3 and are now 15 helps. It may not seem like much, but a change in your work environment can enable a change in how we think. Creating a soothing workspace is also a way to reduce stress and anxiety. As we all know, working on the kitchen table can be the most stressful, especially if you have hungry teenagers who have irregular eating schedules. Sometimes swapping out artwork or photos, like we mentioned, or whatever it is you look at throughout the day while on a video conference call will help. If you have the luxury of a window, maybe moving next to it or having a different angle helps. I have placed bird feeders outside of my window so I can see the birds, or an acrobatic squirrel try to get at the food. Believe me, the squirrel is determined and always entertaining to watch. I think I keep my feeders well stocked just for the squirrel show. What we consume during the day also can play into our state of mind. I know if I eat sweets at lunch and then get on a long conference call in the afternoon, I need to mute my microphone or my peers will hear me snoring. So having a variety of healthy snacks or meal options can be helpful. This can be a challenge at home because you have your whole pantry available. There's plenty of information online. Find something that appeals to your taste buds and stock up. Finally, this is a mental game we are playing. We want to have a normal routine, but if we don't have a way to reinforce the routine, it will go out the door. So creating a log to document your work time is important. This will help you set limits on how long your workday is and indicate that it's time for you to quit. The workday, that is. Many of us will work and work and work. We have to step away, and this is a good way to help us indicate that time. Like any good intention, creating your work log is good, but the value is in using it. You can be tech savvy and use a computer program, or go old school and pick up a physical planner and keep it on your desk. Now let's look at some actions we can take to get mentally fit. Try and make some physical actions part of your day. Get out of your chair every hour, even if it's just a quick stretch. This regular movement will help. If you have a variable height desk, this is the time to go in stand mode. Even a quick 10 to 15 steps away from your workspace can help. Of course, if you are on a conference call, remember to remove your headphones or get a wireless set to prevent other office desk catastrophes that can occur, like spilling this morning's coffee with my headset still connected. By the way, that happened to a friend. Really. If you can step outside, do it. A breath of fresh air, just once a day, can really do wonders. Winter is coming, so consider temperature. If the weather is cold, it can snap you out of the funk from the back-to-back calls you were just on. Set a schedule and keep it. We mentioned routines earlier. Getting into a routine is important. Even if your schedule is flexible, try to set blocks of time when you will do a specific activity. For example, I do email follow-ups toward the end of the day, usually from 3 to 4. Working from home can be chaotic because we have doorbells and laundry and kids remote learning and dogs all working against our ability to schedule. It's a challenge, but it should be one you work toward. Getting into a routine means doing things we did before our world changed. Just taking a shower before we start work can help. We are all guilty of dressing up from the waist up just to get on a conference call. We can all put on a baseball cap or tie our hair back because we have not had a haircut or style since February. It happens. Those who go into work still must do this if they interact with people. Those of us working from home should get back to that. You know the schedule we just mentioned? Having everything scheduled is important. If you used to take a walk at lunch, schedule it. If you used to take a morning run, add it to your schedule. Any physical activity you did or want to do, schedule it. Treat it just like you treat a work meeting. This will also help you follow through and actually do it. Learn to say no when appropriate. People will ask and ask and ask of your time. It's okay at work and at home to say no. We can be overwhelmed before we know it, and always playing catch up at work means longer hours. You have a finite number of hours in the day. Just because you are working from home doesn't mean those hours are infinite. Just say no. We used to gather in the break room for water cooler talk, talking about weekends, upcoming trips, new restaurants, anything but work. Bring that back by connecting virtually with a friend or family member for just a few minutes a day. Don't forget to schedule it if you can. This type of connection helps. It is not as satisfying as being in person, but it's still a connection. We must have a mental break and step away from our day job. This is a good way to do it and stay in touch. The person you are talking with will also appreciate it. We mentioned earlier this is a mental game. Indeed, dealing with change is a mental game. Many of us were thrust into a change in how we work and how we do business. Here are some ways to approach the mental game. First, practice gratitude. This means stepping back and looking at all the great things that we do have. Focus on just 3. Do it daily. For example, a job, a business, and customers. Some folks like to journal, and this can be a release or outlet to help focus on what is working. It may sound syrupy sweet, but mentally expressing gratitude starts your day on a positive frame of mind. In tumultuous times, this can give you an advantage. Your worst critic is staring back at you when you look in the mirror. Challenge and overcome the critic. Remember, if we think we are a failure, we eventually become the failure our critic sees. This falls into the power of positive thinking movement, which there are many books and programs that address this. I want to break it down to its simplest form. You can't ignore the negativity that can creep in. You must acknowledge it, embrace it, and move forward with that acknowledgement. Here's a basic exercise. Jot down the good and the bad. Sometimes when you see them on paper, you may see some of the bad is irrational. That is our inner critic trying to outgame us mentally. As I mentioned, this is a challenge. See, I just saved you hundreds of dollars in self-help books. Folks, I'm here all week, and don't forget to tip your waitstaff. Another part of positive thinking is finding success. Since things changed, we have all had to adjust how we do business and how we work. This means our view of success may need to be tweaked. How are we getting new customers? How are we keeping existing customers? If I provide a product or service, how is that delivered during COVID-19? We must still set business goals, but we may need to make them real if they are dependent on technology. If we can make a goal, we get a good feeling. We mentally get a win. Business does not stop if there is still demand. We must figure out how we continue to meet and even grow the demand. For me, delayed gratification is always a challenge. I've had to think long term with what I want to acquire. I must put in more or different work or effort to realize the same gain that was easier to obtain back before things changed. Remember, this situation is not going to change in the short term. How do we look down the road? That is the question we need to address. It's easy to blame anyone or anything for our shortcomings or mistakes. Some may be well-deserved, but many times we are lashing out because we may be frustrated with ourselves. Try to avoid the blame game. Acknowledge our failings. Learn from them. Blaming others gives others power over us. It can cause us to get stuck because it's someone else's fault. As Yoda says, "A path to the dark side, this is." Yes, I am a fan. In short, these are negative thoughts we don't need. If you've never heard of realistic optimism, look it up. It doesn't mean everything is roses all the time. That person who is eternally optimistic can be annoying, and you are imagining that person in your head now. Those people are not rational. Being a realistic optimist means I will face all my challenges, take on the ones I am capable of handling, and accept the ones that are beyond my control. Acceptance can be as simple as scheduling more time to address an upcoming event because it requires complex coordination. Being a realistic optimist goes hand in hand with knowing your limitations. You have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Ask yourself, when do I throw in the proverbial towel? When do I need to ask for help? If you are the head of your business, it may be hard to show vulnerability because your employees feed off of your state of mind. Those leaders that embrace vulnerability take opportunities to learn from them to become better leaders. And as a side note, if you recognized the Clint Eastwood and Kenny Rogers references, or even know who those people are, consider yourself old like me. The last item is a key part of the mental game. How is your competition doing during this time? Maybe it's time to evaluate and possibly appreciate how they have adapted. Your competitor can be your teacher. I won't go into another Yoda voice at this time, no matter how tempting it is. Take a look around and evaluate what is working for those competitors that are successful. How can you adopt their approach? What we are all trying to do is find a way to do business that works. In short, getting mentally fit can take a series of actions to help us adapt to the new normal. What we did before the pandemic may not be what we do now. We must figure out how to keep doing business. The mental game can be stepped up by making changes in our environment, being conscious of our physical activity, and addressing our way of thinking. The Will Thrive Foundation is a 501c3, so I ask you to consider us the charity you choose to donate to on Giving Tuesday, December 1st, 2020. Like Black Friday and Small Business Saturday, Giving Tuesday is the day for getting the word out on donation appeals for charities. Thank you for tuning in, and we will now be heading in. And I think we've had several conversations so far this week, and we'll continue throughout today and tomorrow. And one of the other things that's always good that can take you away and give you some mental relief is using this time to try something new. Being home now all the time, or in quarantine, or for a majority of the time, being isolated. This is a time for self-development, and so trying some kind of new activity, some new hobby, reading some books. If you've had a stack of books and you haven't been able to get to them, this is a really good time for doing something like that. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have, in trying to just still do the business that we do, is our frustration level is elevated, and for many of us, that may be something that we're not always used to. There are things that would spin us up in the past, that now just an inkling of that spins us up. And I think one of the things that we all need to realize is, it's okay. And it's okay to not be okay during this time. This is a challenging time for all of us. What we need to do is really acknowledge that emotion. That's very important. For a sense of self, but also to give yourself some latitude. Understand that business relationships are really dependent on the relationship piece. So going out on a customer or going out on a coworker doesn't always work with your business environment. So realize that if it's something that you need to work through, get the emotions under control, take a deep breath, take a walk, take some time away, and then get back to mending or building that working relationship.
I think, the key to understand is emotions are not wrong. There's nothing wrong about emotions during a time like this that hasn't been around for 100 years. People had to deal with it differently, and we didn't have technology. So it's a different world. Um, the other thing is I hinted at it throughout the presentation, is check in with yourself. It's very important that multiple times a day, you step away, take off the headset, or yelling into your laptop speaker, and just go outside, go pet the dog, go or the cat or whatever your pet is. um, you know I think I mentioned I have a bird feeder outside my window, and it's nice to look at the different types of birds that are coming through. They're far and few now because we're moving into winter, even though it's a Texas winter, but it's different types of birds left. And my squirrel really enjoys the bird feeder. So but taking a time, just even if it's just 60 seconds in between calls, can really help you out. Just stepping outside your office, if you have the ability to go outside and breathe in a couple of breaths of fresh air, and just make sure that you're not getting overworked, because it's really easy to do. I think one of the things that we're challenged with is separating, especially when we those of us that are remote workers, is separating work time from not work time. And and we have a drive to go through and just do and keep going, and that's what gets us into trouble, because I'm sure our companies appreciate all of the productivity, but the toll it takes on us mentally, the stress level that rises, is because we just don't know how to stop and separate. If you've never been a remote worker and are now a remote worker, one of the struggles you have is not checking your email at 10 o'clock at night, and then having to do responses, and you're always on. I always tell fellow workers or peers, make sure you move your workspace that you're working out of your bedroom. It's really easy to set it up. You can work from your bed, a desk in your room, but there's no separation of those office spaces. And I mentioned that in the video, and that's really a key. And if it's possible, try to move that away and shut down. If you shut down at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, it's okay to shut down. Things are going to be there tomorrow. We think because we have so much time, or we're at home, or that we can do some, we can do more, and that doesn't always work for us. We are people who like to have a little bit of a variety of interests to keep us motivated, because then it's easy to get demotivated when you go that way. And I think in my world, I have been uh, in technology for a long time. I retired from Microsoft in 2019 and have been doing technology consulting. And so most of my work at Microsoft was moving people into the digital world. So, that has been accelerated for everybody. And really that is, for some folks, it's overwhelming. If you're not a technology person, having to now be looking at screens and setting up lighting, and trying to talk into your laptop for more than one day at a time, or multiple days, and it's challenging. So I always say, you've got to ask for help sometimes, and sometimes it's available easily. Sometimes sometimes it takes a little bit more. Sometimes it takes an investment, and a lot of companies, especially small to medium sized companies, had to figure out how do they sell how do they move their business to the web, and that is a mental that is mental stress in itself, because you're trying to keep your doors open. And so that's kind of the challenge that leads to a lot of the mental anxiety that business owners today are facing, especially these small to medium sized businesses. I know here in my community, I've seen a lot of businesses that I knew close down because they couldn't keep up with that, and it's stressful, not only for the business owner, but all those employees that they kept working, that had to go and pivot and find find new work. It's something that it's not just happening here locally; it's happening all over the place. But stress and mental anxiety are on the rise all over. So I think the biggest issue that we have to face is, this is probably not going to go away anytime soon, and there's going to be some semblance of it that remains. You're probably going to see more people wearing masks when they do start traveling. There's still going to be different types of levels of acceptance of anything that goes to help treat what we're trying to eradicate here. But there's the way corporations are doing business and seeing people being productive from home. There may not be offices to go back to. These are the new realities that we're going to have to come to terms with in some cases. Those of us, those of you who go into work normally, that's probably not a huge issue for you. But I think one of the things is we just have to be ready to adapt to change, and that in itself can be very stressful. So keep that in mind. I think I also mentioned in the video that you should try to get into a routine as much as you can. If at all possible, do something on a regular basis, because you did before. You got up, you did whatever you did to get ready for work. You went and grabbed a coffee or a breakfast, and you went into work, and you did email, and everybody did their normal thing, because we're creatures of habit. So when you have this almost instantaneous disruption, it was a light on, a light off, and bam, we had to change things the way we work. We were kind of in a free fall, and just being with that level of uncertainty of what does tomorrow look like. Those of us who had a disrupted routine, struggled, and we were getting stressed, we were getting upset, there was uncertainty of our job. All these things play into our mental state of mind. So if you can use a schedule, if you can try to say, okay, this is, and some of you probably have already done that, but if you can get to a point where I'm going to do this, I'm going to put this into a routine, and I'm going to do this. And like I said, even if things that are not really work related, but you set time for them. You got up to go to take a break about 10:15, whether it was a smoker's break, or in my case, a non-smoker's break. You got to walk around and do something. You got to visit with your coworkers. Set some time like that, and show, that you're still trying to do some semblance of normal during this time. I think that's really important. And then, I think one of the things that really drew me to seeing this is that if you're a primary person in your household and you're mentally stressed, those around you that live with you feed off of that. I mentioned that if you're the leader of your company, your employees feed off of your state of mind. So that adds a whole nother layer of stress that you have to deal with. But just being in your household and being stressed out means that you're going to be, if you have kids, be snippy with with everything, with your kids, with your spouse, siblings, peers, roommates, wherever you live. I think that's a big effect, because it continues to reverberate with those around you. We all talk about today having a bubble, and this bubble is around like people who we want to associate with, that are maybe not just around our immediate circle. And what does that do for you, and how does that work, and how does that impact? And if you can create that, even from a professional perspective, set the ground rules and do that, that could help minimize some of your stress. But I am going to be open for a couple of questions here, so I will open it up.
Okay, first of all, Ed, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing your story. And I'm going to give you a little pushback. I'm
Okay.
going to say that I think the best motto is to live long and prosper.
I knew you were going to reference my Yoda.
Yeah. I'm a Star Trek
I'm a Star
fan.
Trek
So
fan
I'm a
too.
Trek.
I like them both, so
Yeah.
that's okay.
So I came late to the party with the Star Wars versus Star Trek thing. So I'm a Trekkie. But I think live long and prosper, I think
I
is a
like it.
great motto for everyone to live by.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is very socially distant.
yeah, you know what? That is absolutely
So
great.
the
Yeah.
Vulcans had it right, so you're good.
Yeah, they had it right all along. Absolutely. No hugging, no
That's right.
touching, just this, and
That's right.
everybody's good.
That's
So
right.
I love it. That is perfect. So you said a lot of great things that I took some notes about, and you said something that made me feel like a genius. Like, for one thing, I've always said that I'm a realistic optimist. And that is something that I've always said to my kids that,
Yep.
even as a person of faith, because I'm a
Yep.
pastor.
Yep.
So, there's this misconception that if you're a person of faith, you tend to be unrealistic about your approach to life. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I feel like that it's important to have optimism, which is,
It
our
is.
faith. But I think that even with faith, you can be realistic. So how do you merge those two things together? Give me a little bit more information about the
Yeah.
realistic optimism.
And depending on what your position is in whatever role you do from a business perspective,
Hmm.
you are going to have a level of credibility.
Hmm.
And so if you understand that optimism is a motivator,
Yes.
but when people see your optimism, if it's not tempered with any type of reality, because they
Hmm.
can tune on the news and look at their friends and see what's going on in their community, you start to lose that credibility. And that can erode your ability to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it's from a business, whether it's from the pulpit, whether, whatever it is in life you're trying to do. So you've really got to temper that optimism with what we're seeing, because people will then stop listening. And if
Hmm.
they stop listening and your message isn't getting out, you're not going to sell your service, you're not going to convert these people, and you're not going to bring more to do business with you. So you really just have to kind of look at things and understand, I can't control these.
Hmm.
What you're seeing on the news is probably not something that I can control. So I'm going to acknowledge it and see, how do I do business now with that stuff going on, and tune it
Right.
out. And that's kind of one of the things also that, that I also throw out as a tip right now, is that, if you can tune off the news, tune it off, because man, that can
Mhm.
get you down and depressed and raise your anxiety
Yeah.
easily. So, tuning that out and reading a book or whatever, or talking to a friend, is gonna make you feel a little more relief mentally,
Hmm.
than watching the tube. Now, of course, you
Yeah.
can still binge good stuff like Discovery for Star Trek fans, or The Mandalorian for Star Wars fans.
Right. We've got new
But
material.
those are escapes, and those are
Mhm.
good. And if you can find an escape, that's going to give you some mental relief too. Just understand that escapes that aren't addressing what's causing your anxiety and your stress level are only going to be short-term fixes.
Yes.
So
Okay.
cool.
Well, thank you so much for expounding on that and for
Yeah.
answering that question. And I think that's a great segue to bring in Yashi. I'm going to read her bio because the work that she has done, I think, is a perfect blend of realistic optimism. So we're going to welcome in Yashi. I'm going to read her bio for just a moment. And as she gets set up and gets situated, and I'm really excited about hearing what she has to say. So Yashi Brown is an author, writer, poet, public speaker, and leading voice in the mental health space since 2011. Yashi's poetry became her chosen creative expression upon experiencing severe bipolar depression and mania symptoms as a young adult. Fueled by her deep spirituality and a burning desire to empower herself and others, Yashi realized her recovery journey. Today, she is an award-winning mental health advocate, artist, and public speaker, thriving with bipolar type 1. Yashi's poetry, spoken word, and story of recovery has been featured on The Today Show, Fox News, CNN In Session, HuffPost, Rise, Sirius XM, CBS, ABC, all these other alphabets, a whole lot of other things, a whole lot of other places she's accomplished. Uh, so Yashi, she has published mental health pieces for Thrive Global, Huffington Post, NAMI National, NAMI Advocate, and our HHS department with a focus on recovery and its many faces with self-empowerment, eliminating self-imposed stigma and manifestation. So I could go on and on and on. I went on YouTube last night and I listened to some of her pieces, and I could sit and listen to her all day. So instead of hearing me read about her, we are going to hear from the woman, the myth, the legend herself. Yashi, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. You
Hey,
guys hear me
Yashi.
okay?
Yes, we can, and
Hi.
we can hear you. Good to see you.
Good to see you as
So
well.
I think the burning question is, are you a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan?
Star Wars,
Or
more so. But you want to know something? I'm not too terribly familiar. I
with
never
the
closely followed either one. So if I had to choose one, it would be more Star Wars. But because just the overall themes, however, X-Men, ask me about
there
that,
you
and I
go.
probably could like go on a tangent. So
Awesome. Well, good.
I'm
Well,
not
no,
totally ungeeked in that way, you know.
that's right. We had a discussion earlier with Jonathan and I and Pastor Jonathan.
Oh,
So
yes. Okay.
we were just
Makes
talking about
sense.
that. So we wanted to get your take on that. But now jumping into our fireside chat here, and
Yes.
tell me a little bit about some of the changes. People who when the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
a lot of people had to pivot. A lot of people
Yeah.
had to change, and sometimes they had to change their business altogether, change how they're doing business. Yeah. So how did the change with the pandemic affect you, and how did you pivot?
You know, when the pandemic hit in March, I immediately overbought. But the good news is I didn't go into stores. I just was online,
Yeah.
buying stuff online, and I was by myself. So my main thing, I was traveling at the time, still, in the month of March, doing engagements.
Hmm.
And I was so concerned about, you know, I have a grandmother who's 90 and my mother is 70.
Oh, wow.
And so so I was really concerned about, and everybody's health. And I immediately quarantined myself. So I was actually going to quarantine back in February.
Wow.
And my main concern again was trying to maintain a healthy environment for myself and my loved ones, but especially my loved ones.
Hmm.
And being in that mindset really helped me make and formulate decisions that would benefit everyone. So again, I wasn't so resistant to what the news was telling me. I had a friend that had sent me information on the virus back in January, early
Wow.
January, when it was hitting Wuhan, and saying that our news wasn't covering it enough and talking about it in more detail. So I kind of knew that this was a little bit coming, but it did sneak up immediately all at once. And when it did, I was aware of what was already happening. So I felt like the pivot was a little bit easier from the standpoint of I wasn't as shocked as the whole world was when we had to shut down. I kind of had a feeling we were going to have to shut down immediately. California was one of the earlier states to do so. And then, so I was really kind of prepared in that way, emotionally and mentally. And I think when you're already dealing with emotional challenges, if you've had to deal with that sort of challenge in your life, you're used to having to pivot and regulate. And you're used to having to work with your emotions when challenges come up. So it's kind of a muscle that's already been going, and you're able to deal with it a little bit easier. So I'll say that that's what happened with COVID. Now, when the George Floyd situation happened a few months down the line, that was definitely triggering for me. And that's when I noticed more of a struggle. And that's another conversation, but definitely the difference in the two was quite interesting.
And so how did you approach, because your business is really promoting you, and engaging with people and talking about, okay. Yeah. So with the fact that you had to engage with folks, how did that change the approach on how you were going to, support your livelihood? And, how did how was your adoption of, technology to spread the message and advocate?
It's so funny. I'm one of those people that was very affected by this pandemic and how it affected my work. So I'm actually in that transition right now. I'm creating a course that is going to pretty much be able to transfer most of ideas that I was really coming into working with other people on at the beginning of the year when it comes to manifesting and visualization, and putting that into more of a course that incorporates your creativity. That's how I've had to, make the shift, because it's so funny. I was watching a program. The financier, his name is Ray Dalio. He was actually speaking on TED right after the pandemic hit, talking about how those who are going to be able to ride this wave, this interesting wave, whatever you want to call it, are those who can adapt and shift. Those who are staying rigid to old ways and rigid to the old way of doing things are going to have a tougher time, if not sink. As far as this pandemic is concerned. So from that point forward, and that was a little earlier on when I saw that, I was starting to think of what are the new and innovative ways for me to approach my work, my message, as well as to deliver it to the audience. So in the meantime, I took on different live stream Zoom events in the month of May. And in the month of, early in the month of May, Mental Health Month, which is normally a busy speaking month for me, I took on those events so that I can have public appearance and so that I can be seen by others, and keep the message going. Because again, it's all about just continuing to stay positive and feel good. In those times of isolation, it was so important for me to figure out ways to feel good, to do activities, to take inventory of the things that I wanted to do and wasn't able to do in the past. And then the financial aspect of it definitely was impactful.
Yeah.
But I had to remember I wasn't alone.
Right.
Others were going through what I was going through. And so by compartmentalizing it in that particular way, I was able to again get outside of myself, which is so important, that we get outside of ourselves, see what's going on around, how we are part of this macrocosm, how we're part of something, and then we're able to create waves. Our creativity, we start tapping into that and we adapt.
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, okay, so great. So the one thing that I keep hearing over and over again is the word adaptation. And the other word is change. And the ability for us to be able to adapt consistently and to change consistently. So I think that that's the going theme when we're talking about mental health and mental wellness, particularly in this season, and being able to make those necessary changes and adapt. And you said something, Yashi, that I think is so important, that those who are able to ride this wave are going to be the ones who are able to adapt. It's the difference between sinking and swimming. So that's really, really, really important. That's something that I've been able to take away. And it's something that I've had to experience. And Even with my ministry, we have provided mental health sessions for our parishioners, for our members. We have mental health professionals that have come in and actually had Zoom fellowship instead of our Sunday morning messages. We're actually doing Zoom mental health sessions with people, and we actually have nutritionists coming in that are actually helping people to take this downtime, since we're not able to eat at restaurants anyway, to learn how to eat better and cook and change your diet so that we can actually see what we can do ourselves to kind of help fight off the infection and to stay well. So thank you for the chat that you guys are engaging in right now. It's really beneficial, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.